Hi, my name is Sam Price, the Crypto Lifer, and I've been doing technical analysis for over 15 years. And today I want to do a macro technical analysis video for Bitcoin. Total 3, Bitcoin dominance, Tether dominance, the DXY, which is the dollar, S&P futures was the S&P, NASDAQ, so you can know what's happening with the NASDAQ, find out what's going on with the bigger stocks in the world. And we're going to look at gold, Solana ETH, Solana Bitcoin, and give you a big idea of what's happening in the market. We're also going to take a look at the dominances, see how they're affecting the market. It's going to be amazing. So get ready. Let's break it down. First thing I want to talk about is what happened. I do this every single week, and let's just take a look at what I said last week. That is a known reversal. That is a known reversal area, and I would not be surprised if Bitcoin, at least on the 4-hour, breaks back out this weekend, back up somewhere to 70,000, 72,008, maybe to consolidate a little more for a bigger move. But I am expecting a bounce here for Bitcoin off this hidden bullish divergence and the 618 golden pocket back up into the $72,000 region, 72.8. So I'm looking for the bounce for Bitcoin. So far, it looks like the daily held off what could have been a worse dump. And it's looking pretty interesting here now as we sit tight above 69,000. If we lose 69,000, so here we are back to the present moment in time, and you can see we did beautifully bounce off that key level right there to the upside. That was the level we were talking about on that 4-hour just a week ago. Unbelievable. November 1st, it is now the 8th. We've had 7 days of loveliness, and the bounce happened for Bitcoin. So that's exactly the area we were talking about here in that 4-hour time frame. We had pulled the Fibonacci. It had played a little bit with the 618 area, but eventually would not give it up. Wicked a little bit. We got that bounce to the upside. The hidden bullish divergence did kick in. This swung up, while this swung down, and we eventually got the bigger move to the upside. We did go to 72,000, 73, and then continued further to the upside for Bitcoin. So beautiful move. Now what? Where do we go? We're in price discovery. First thing we want to look at is the weekly, right? All by itself. Let's take a look at the beautiful weekly for Bitcoin. Weekly is about to close the biggest weekly candle in the history of its life. It's awesome, above 71,280, 71,300. And that's just, that's bullish, right? Once that closes, support probably around 71.5. And I don't see us going much lower than that as we continue to grow further to the upside. So I like what we're seeing on the weekly. It's looking absolutely beautiful. It is a little extended, but it doesn't mean we can't continue. The RSI hasn't even crossed the dotted line yet. There's still a lot of room for growth. The 3-day chart, just curving, could still pump. I like what we're seeing for the 3-day, and the 3-day is well above that resistance. Tells us that's going to be really nice support. You raise it up a little bit, 72,006, even a little more. Yeah, 72,007 is just really nice support. I'll call it 72,780, almost 800. But it's really nice support here for Bitcoin. So if we bounce off that key level, it shows that there could be a nice area for a bounce. We slap on the moving averages, and you can see the daily just is getting a little far away from the 21. We could start to pull that and just kind of go on one of these type of rallies and pull the 21 with it and get very, very bullish, kind of like we do here. You pull up. You don't have to come right back to the 21 when you get very bullish. What you'll do is you'll pull the 21 vertically with it, and it's look like we're setting up for that type of motion. And so you'd have kind of like a lateral flag that would go up, and then that flag would eventually break out. When you're very bullish, you have a flag that's uptrending instead of a sideways or a downtrending flag. It's just so bullish that the flag can't even go sideways. It just has to trend upwards, and then you continue. That target takes you to 89,000, and it takes you there by basically the first 2 days of December. So it says November is going to be a very eventful month for Bitcoin, and we could pump all the way to 70, 90,000. I mean, there's some options calls that are actually not even paying that much to 90K because the probability is pretty high at this point, which is pretty interesting if you think about it. The 8-hour time frame looking pretty good, moving with the 200 MA. And again, just we're seeing that this is our new zone. So our new bottom for Bitcoin, if we lose this, fine, then we can all start talking about 70,000 and 80,000. But as long as we stay above 72,008, we really have nothing to stress, even if we end up getting a bigger pullback, And then we're back down to this 4-hour, and we've just been watching this flag this whole time, and we've been battling the 75.8 to 76,200 $200 level for literally about 24 hours now, just on and off, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And it's been a bit of a struggle. It really has. We go to the 1 hour time frame, and the 1 hour still looks bullish to me. Like I've been saying how this setup looks bullish, and there's a breakout coming. And I talked about this being in a flag. I felt like they lost the flag, broke it back up, broke it out a few times. You could even make it bigger if you want to make it chunky, but it's bullish consolidation. And it's showing that the 1 hour definitely wants to bounce back up somewhere to about 78,500. So super bullish for me from what I'm looking at. And to me, it tells me that there could be a big move. I'm watching to make sure the 15-minute doesn't lose the 200. As long as you stay above the 15-minute 200, we can pump to the upside. So, and you kind of have to use a little bit of smaller time frames when you're doing bigger, even though it's a bigger time frame move, because we're in price discovery. So we're looking for this to continue up, this rising wedge to break out all the way to $86,000 for Bitcoin, and even up to 90K, right? Might be a little stop at 78.5, but then it looks like we could really get a blast. So Bitcoin looking very, very bullish. The total market cap in all of cryptocurrency, let's take a look at it on the bigger time frames. We went over how bullish it was. We talked about it being a giant cup and handle on the weekly, and we knew that it was likely going to break out, right? But it depended on the smaller time frames. If we remove the moving averages, and I'm going to get into this pennant in a second that we drew, but there was a likelihood of a break to the upside here on the total market cap. You go to the 4 hour, and we talked about how this kind of rising wedge needed to break out. All right, that was November 1st. We eventually got the dip, but we got back inside the pattern, and then that would eventually rip. So we would do the double bottom. So look, this pattern would break down, but we beautifully did a double bottom there. You can see, and we did not break back inside the pattern. That was the key. And then we got the beautiful bounce. When Bitcoin bounced, it let everything else bounce with it. Beautiful move to the upside. Nice W. And you can see, like, my pattern eventually, and this is key to pattern trading. You'll lose it. If you get back inside, play the pattern exactly like it got in. And so this tells us that we were headed up to $288 trillion for the total market cap and all of the altcoins and all and everything. This is the big, the market cap of every crypto put together. And what you want to see now is just basically like in either an uptrending flag or some type of a sideways flag before this thing can make a huge move to the upside. And that's just kind of what we're looking for the total market cap. Total 3 was in the same boat. If we look at it on the weekly here, it was in the giant cup and handle about to explode, right? And then it kind of just did this. And then we brought it, remember on the daily, we had it inside of this like ascending triangle here. And it did lose the trend line, but got back inside, regained the 200 MA on the daily, and then we were gone. And now we're above the resistance. We're hanging out here. There could still be a slight pullback for the altcoins, right? And it may not even be a pullback. We might get an upward trending flag, or it could be a downward trending flag. Either one, it looks like the 21 will come in. We could go sideways. Different altcoins will pump on and off, and then a bigger move is coming. So I see this just, consolidating maybe for a couple days. I'd say 5 or 6 at the most, and then it looks like a bigger move is coming for total market cap of all the altcoins. Bitcoin dominance, very, very interesting, right? Looked like it was going to continue to pump very, very hard, and it did. It broke out nicely. However, now we got a little pullback. People were kind of now that they've made fat gains in Bitcoin, they kind of want to dip into the altcoins a little bit. This tells me that for the next 4 to 5 to 6 weeks, we're going to have altcoin season, and this is going to pull back. We just need it. And it doesn't have to pull back that much. It could even make a sideways flag. It just doesn't have to uptrend so hard. Bitcoin dominance used to be when altcoin season used to be when Bitcoin dominance dumped hard. Maybe dominance is so strong, we don't need it to dump hard. We just needed to go somewhat sideways and just dip a little bit. And that's enough money to give the altcoins a bid run because there's so much more money coming in. So we won't need the drastic move for Bitcoin dominance to get such a move in altcoins because of the difference in this cycle, right? Still, we want to see it. It would be awesome, but I just want you to think about that and take that into account. So Bitcoin dominance looks like it's going to fall. And for the next, 5 to 6, 7 weeks up until the end of the year, it looks like altcoins are going to rally, and they're going to rally pretty dang hard, right? Tether dominance, which just did an investment division for $45 million in crude oil trade in the Middle East. It's pretty interesting. Their investment division did that for Tether, right? Tether dominance, remember, we have it in a giant inverted cup and handle. There's the cup. There's the handle down. It wants to continue to dip. This looks likely. This looks like what's going to happen, right? And then the head and shoulder dumped, and then we kind of zoom in to the smaller time frame to show you that we're making this flag. You don't want to see a bounce, but I don't know who's going to run into Tether right now. It doesn't make sense. Altcoins look pretty bullish, right? If we get a pullback for Bitcoin, maybe a little bit, but this looks like we could go sideways, and then eventually this is going to let go. So I basically by the probability, it's like we're going to come to the 21, touch price action, and this is going to dump. Just if you flip it upside down, the same thing's going to happen to Bitcoin and the altcoins. They're very bullish. So tether dominance has to dump, which takes us to the DXY, which isn't correlated to tether dominance, although they can move together. You know, Trump is super bullish on the dollar. Trump in office is a strong dollar. He's going to have tariffs. He's going to put it his way. And I really think that helps the dollar somewhat. It doesn't hurt Bitcoin per se, and it doesn't hurt risk on assets. I think everything can pump. They're going to continue to print money, which makes things go up in value, right? But, you know, a strong dollar, if you have tariffs, there's all sorts of talks of things changing here, and that could change. And all of a sudden, you have this move up here, and it looks like we may get Bitcoin and the dollar to pump together for the next few days or for a week here. So just be careful. Don't be surprised if you do see the dollar pump. It looks like it may pump with Bitcoin. And, you know, that's just something that you have to keep on the radar and see for what it is, right? We look at the ES futures, S&P futures. I went over the fact that the S&P was likely going to pump. I even gave you a live trade. Let's look at what I said here about the S&P last week. My prediction is we're going to be somewhere up in here, right there, when I show up next week. Look for the NASDAQ to bounce off this bottom trend line. So as we said, the S&P, you know, look at that. It may have made a right shoulder, but it didn't even. It ended up just continuing to plow, and it went right to where I circled to, which is pretty crazy, right? Up into the area that we thought. I even had a trade right here. You can see there's your entry, there's your stop loss. You can now move the stop loss basically to break even, and you're in the money there on the S&P. I continuously give you guys trades of the S&P on these Fridays, but I don't know if anyone ever takes them, but they're ready for you and ready to go. We take a look at that, and where do I see, you know, we could get one more push. You think, could we get it would be nice if we get the pullback, get tight, and then we pump up. But there's a chance we continue. Let's look at the smaller time frames. They're going to just give you a little more insight. Yeah, I mean, they're flagging out pretty nicely and a rising wedge, showing you like money printing going crazy, right? Almost fell out, got back inside. To me, I got to say, it looks like next week this will be breaking out. And by the 11th, the 12th, or you know, we might be higher. So it says somewhere by next week when we come here and do this again, wow. Like, we could see some crazy moves. You know, it looks like we may be pumping. So it looks to me like we'll be higher than we are, and we may not come back down to the bottom of the pattern. You know, slightly bullish, bearish scenarios, we come back down, but we still pump. But the real bullish is we break on out, and it looks more likely that that's going to happen. The NASDAQ did, in fact, bounce, like I said, off the bottom here and went even higher. I thought it would go a little more sideways before the bounce, but it broke out already. NASDAQ looking very, very bullish on the 3-day. I don't see how this doesn't continue. It may go sideways a little bit and catch up with the 21, but I see this continuing. NASDAQ to 24,000. I haven't changed my tune on that. Gold continuing to do damage, but it looks like it's going to go sideways a little bit. I think people are realizing that Bitcoin's kind of the answer and a little better than gold, and I think they're starting to kind of understand that they'd rather get into some gold, so out of gold and into some Bitcoin. And I think you're starting to see a little transfer of wealth from gold into Bitcoin. Even though gold's hot, I still think that's happening, and you're going to see that sideways. Then they'll probably pump together again once you've had a little bit of an exchange. But it seems to me that people are moving a little bit from gold into Bitcoin. Sol Ethereum, I said it would pump huge. It already has. I don't see how it doesn't. It's cheaper, easier, faster, and gives you a better experience. Why would you use Ethereum when you can use Solana? The memes are there, the action is there, and the volume is there. It's 100% every reason why. Also, this flag on the daily looks like it's about to break out and break out soon. Watch this flag on Solana ETH. It looks like it's going to beat up on Solana, and eventually your Sol ETH trade is just going to continue up 121%. It's already up from when the entry was in there at 05808. Shout out to anyone that jumped into a Sol ETH trade. And then Sol Bitcoin. I see Sol eventually beating up on Bitcoin too. I just don't see how when they both go up together, I see Sol eventually taking the multiple and making a gain, 118% on Bitcoin there for SOLBTC. Thank you so much for watching. That is your top-down analysis for Bitcoin. Bitcoin dominance, Tether dominance, total 3, the DXY, the S&P futures, NASDAQ, gold, Sol ETH, and SOLBTC. I hope you had a wonderful time watching this. I'll be back next week to break it down again and do what we do every single Friday for the top-down macro analysis. Please watch all my videos, comment, like, and subscribe. Hit the bell for notifications. You can find out when I post my next video. Remember, if you came to the channel, then you're already doing the right thing. Crypto is life. God bless.